the bustling heart of a vibrant African city, where sunrise painted the skyline with amber and gold, lived a woman named Odeeka, a force of nature wrapped in beauty and brilliance. Her days began before the first rooster crowed and ended long after the city's lights blinked out for the night. She worked at a respected architecture firm, where blueprints bowed to her will and deadlines trembled under her command. To her co-workers, Odeeka was the embodiment of excellence, always composed, always driven. Her friends admired her tenacity, but worried about her relentless pace. "You need to take a breath," they would say over weekend brunches she often missed. But Odeeka would smile, her mind already racing ahead to the next project. Life, for her, was a blueprint, and every moment needed to be meticulously designed, structured, and executed. There was no room for chaos, only control. Odeeka's success came at a cost. Her personal life was a wasteland of failed romances, each one collapsing under the weight of her need to lead, to dominate, to be right. She didn't just want things done. She wanted them done her way, without compromise. Past lovers had found her intensity suffocating. Where others saw partnership, she saw command. Her friends joked that her heart had a boardroom instead of a bedroom. Still, Odeeka brushed off such comments. But one morning, one fateful, chaotic morning, everything began to shift. The sun had barely begun to rise when Odeeka stirred from a restless sleep, her body aching from the tension of the night before. Blueprints and sketch pads laid scattered across her living room floor, a visual testament to her late-night toil. The project was due at 8 a.m. sharp. She had promised herself a 20-minute nap around 3 a.m. just to recharge, but her exhausted body had other plans. When her eyes fluttered open and landed on the clock reading 7:42 a.m., a scream tore from her throat. She flew from the couch, panic hammering in her chest. In a blur, she freshened up, got dressed, and bolted out the front door without a second glance. Odeeka jumped in her car and sped down the main road, her mind racing faster than the car. But fate had a different script for her that morning. As she turned onto a less traveled road, a strange vibration shook the car's frame. It was subtle at first, then louder, angrier. With a groan of frustration, she pulled over, slamming the gear into park. Her heels clicked sharply against the asphalt as she circled the car. There it was, a flat tire, rear left completely lifeless. "Unbelievable," she shouted, throwing her arms in the air. She stormed back to the car to call roadside assistance, only to realize the horrible truth: no phone. Her heart dropped. "Just my luck," she shrieked, sitting in her car on the roadside like a storm cloud with a perfect blowout. Car after car whizzed by, indifferent to her distress. Minutes passed. Then, finally, a black SUV slowed to a stop just ahead of her. A man stepped out, tall, well-dressed, with an easy smile. "What seems to be the problem?" he asked. And just like that, the story of Odeeka and Abuela began. He was like a calm breeze on a stormy day, tall, with a confident but unassuming demeanor. Abuela approached Odeeka with a sense of ease that made her momentarily forget the chaos of her morning. His deep voice carried warmth as he repeated his question. "What seems to be the problem?" Odeeka hesitated for a second, a little taken aback by how handsome and polished he looked. She quickly composed herself and explained the flat tire and her forgotten phone, finishing with a sigh that carried the weight of her morning frustrations. "I was rushing for a presentation," she added, "and now this." He nodded empathetically. "Sounds rough." "Well, a damsel in distress is not something I can drive past," he said with a playful grin. "Why don't I give you a lift? I'm already running late for work too, so We might as well be late together. It was a bold offer, but something about his tone, calm, kind, assured, made her trust him. Against all her instincts, she agreed. The car ride was smooth, the silence between them occasionally broken by soft jazz humming from the stereo. Odeeka, though still mentally rewinding her chaotic morning, found herself strangely at ease. As they talked, she learned that Abuela was a broker, specializing in land acquisition and development deals. He handed her his card with a casual flick of his fingers, the way people do when they know they'll be remembered. Odeeka was intrigued, not just by his job or his sharp dress sense, but by his easygoing nature, so different from the commanding energy she brought to every interaction. When they arrived at her office building, she thanked him genuinely. "Anytime," he replied, holding her gaze just a moment longer than necessary. As he drove away, Odeeka stood there watching his SUV disappear into the traffic. She walked into the building with a smile that even her boss's irritated glare couldn't wipe away. From the moment Abuela drove away, something inside Odeeka shifted, like a tightly wound spring in her chest had finally loosened. For days after, she clutched his business card like a relic, reading his name over and over as though it carried the secret of the universe. Abuela. She played his voice in her head like a favorite song, memorizing the rhythm of his laugh, the tilt of his smile, and the way his fingers drummed lightly on the steering wheel while they drove. Odeeka fell hard and fast for him without warning. From that day forward, the two were inseparable. Like a perfectly choreographed dance, they moved through life as one, effortless, radiant, magnetic. She would surprise him at his job, bringing him his favorite takeout or homemade treats. In return, Odeeka's office desk bloomed daily with fresh flowers, roses, lilies, orchids, so vibrant they seemed to hum. Her female co-workers often hovered over her cubicle, fawning over the latest bouquet and sighing with mock envy. But Odeeka paid them no mind. Her heart was too full, too busy being loved by a man who made every day feel like a fairy tale. Odeeka reveled in the extravagance. There were shopping sprees in Paris, dinners held at rooftop restaurants where the city glowed beneath their feet, and laughter floated like music into the night sky. For her birthday, Abuela whisked her away to Dubai. She wasn't just dating, she was being adored. Her friends, seeing her lit from within, celebrated her joy. "It's about time," they would say, as she gushed about her Prince Charming. She'd laugh, a deep, delighted sound, certain she was finally living the life she was meant for. At home, Abuela was everywhere. His face smiled back at her from countless framed photos. Her house was no longer just hers, it was theirs in spirit, soaked in shared memories. During a casual visit one Sunday, her longtime friend Mila tilted her head, scanning the walls. "Odeeka," she began gently, "it's been months now. When are we going to meet this mystery man of yours?" Odeeka turned away, busy in herself with pouring wine, her smile polite but vague. "Soon," she said, as always. "I'll let you meet him soon." Mila chuckled. "Is he a ghost or something?" Odeeka just laughed, but her gaze drifted toward the framed photo of Abuela on the mantel, a perfect candid of him smiling in the sunlight. The question lingered like a fog in the room, heavy and unasked. Soon never came, and with each passing week, curiosity among her circle deepened into quiet concern. You see, Odeeka was not dating Abuela. The truth, raw and sharp, lingered just beneath the surface of her carefully curated fantasy. They had met that morning, months ago, yes, but that was just about it. She had car trouble, and he offered her a ride and handed her his business card. A moment so brief, it should have evaporated like breath on glass. But for Odeeka, It rooted itself deeply, blooming into something far beyond what it was. That single encounter became the spark of an entire universe in her mind. Odeeka stitched together an elaborate love story from threads of imagination. The flowers at her desk? She bought them herself before work each morning. The lavish gifts, ordered online, signed with his name in delicate cursive. The birthday trip to Dubai, a photo she found online, posted by a travel influencer, was enough to trick her own memory into believing it had happened. Odeeka's obsession had reached a new high. Seeing Abuela's life from a distance no longer satisfied her. She needed contact, something more tangible than screenshots and fantasies. Her research, quiet and meticulous, eventually paid off. After weeks of digital sleuthing and a few stage drives past his office, she discovered a small diner he frequented on Thursday mornings. She'd seen it mentioned in a tagged post by one of his co-workers, and from that moment, she formed a plan. On a cool Thursday morning, she walked into that same diner. She slid into a booth and ordered coffee, her eyes discreetly trained on the door. When Abuela finally walked in, alone and seemingly relaxed, her heart somersaulted. It was the first time she had seen him in person since that day of the flat tire. She gave it 10 minutes, enough to make her appearance seem coincidental, and then she made her move. She approached him like a breeze, calm, collected. "Funny running into you here," she said, her tone light. At first, he looked puzzled. "I helped you out on the side of the road once, didn't I?" he asked. Relief swept through her like a tide. "Yes, that was me," she replied with a laugh. "Odeeka." He nodded and gestured for her to sit, and they began to talk. It was a casual conversation, surface level and filled with polite chuckles, but to Odeeka, it was electric. Every glance, every word, every smile, she absorbed it like sunlight. For a few minutes, it felt like a real connection, but her bliss was short-lived. As she leaned in to share another laugh, the bell above the door jingled, and a woman walked in, elegant, confident, beautiful. Odeeka barely had time to process her presence before the woman made her way over and greeted Abuela with a soft kiss. A kiss that was not friendly, a kiss that made everything inside Odeeka go still. Odeeka's breath caught in her throat as she watched Abuela rise to his feet, his expression shifting instantly from casual familiarity to glowing warmth. He wrapped his arm around the woman and kissed her temple tenderly, as though this was the most natural thing in the world. "This is the love of my life," he said, turning back toward Odeeka with genuine affection in his voice. His eyes sparkled as he looked at the woman beside him, and for the first time, Odeeka saw something in him she hadn't crafted in her imagination. A man deeply in love, just not with her. Odeeka forced a smile, though her lips trembled. "Nice to meet you," she said, extending a hand to the woman, who grasped it with polite grace. "He helped me a while back on the road one morning." "So, you're the one with the flat tire?" the woman asked, cheerfully. "He told me about it, said you were completely stranded." "Small world, huh?" Her words were kind, but to Odeeka, they felt like knives. She managed to nod, but her world was tilting. The carefully constructed fantasies she lived in for months, the luxury trips, the gifts, the affection, all crumbled in an instant. Odeeka's skin burned with shame. Her hands began to tremble, and her throat tightened with the pressure of emotions she could not release in front of them. "It was lovely seeing you both, but I should be going," she said, her voice tight with restraint. Abuela smiled kindly, none the wiser. "Take care of yourself, Odeeka," he said genuinely. She nodded and turned, each step toward the door heavy with humiliation. The imagined love, the relationship she had so meticulously built, had been nothing more than a beautiful lie. He had fallen in love with someone who didn't even know her, and now, for the first time in months, she was utterly alone, with no illusion left to hide behind. Odeeka left the diner with clenched fists and a fire blazing in her chest. The morning hadn't gone how she wanted. Odeeka had waited long enough, played nice, and lingered on the sideline of his life, hoping he'd see her. But that time had passed. No, there would be no more wasted hours at the office. She had decided. She was going to take action. She would invest her time differently. From this moment on, her life's mission was to get Abuela, no matter the cost. Her obsession matured into precision. She began to follow Abuela religiously. She watched where he parked, memorized his routes, and took note of every place he lingered. One day, she finally trailed him all the way home, watching carefully from a few blocks away as he pulled into a quiet suburban driveway. That was what she needed, his address. And that was only the beginning. She studied his wife like a textbook. Her walk, her laugh. Odeeka bought the same perfume, outfit, and jewelry as Abuela's wife. She mirrored the woman's hairstyle, even down to the deep side part and soft waves. Slowly, piece by piece, she built a new version of herself, an eerie reflection of the woman who had the life she wanted. It was a Friday when Odeeka's opportunity finally came. She had overheard Abuela talking to a colleague at the diner the day before about planning a surprise anniversary dinner for his wife. Her heart twisted with jealousy, but her mind buzzed with strategy. She needed to know where they were going. That evening, she parked a few blocks from his house again, waiting for them patiently. When they stepped out of the house, his wife glowing in a floor-length red dress, Odeeka's breath caught in her throat. She focused on his wife's outfit, noting every shimmer of jewelry, every curve of fabric. "That should be me you're all over," she whispered while tightening her grip on the steering wheel. She followed them to an upscale restaurant and waited in the car, obsessing over her rival's style and snapping pictures for future imitation. But her obsession betrayed her. She drifted off while waiting in the car outside the restaurant, and by the time she jolted awake, they were gone. Furious at herself, she slammed her fist into the steering wheel. Still, she had gained information, and that was enough. For now. Hey everyone, I just want to say thank you for your continued support. It truly means a lot to me, and I hope you all enjoyed listening to this dramatic tale. But it's not done yet. Trust me, you don't want to miss part 2. So please stick around for more twists and turns as we go deeper into this tale. Thank you again for sticking around with me, and I'll see you on the next one. Be blessed.